Hi there, my name is Josh. I'm the co founder and CEO at Interact. Interact is the original lead generation quiz software. But today, I'm going to talk about the top 8 lead generation quiz softwares because I want to compare and contrast the different options that are out there. When we started back in 2013, there was no software in this market. I called some of the biggest marketers of the day, and they were like, there's nothing for this. You should build one. So we did. It's been 12 years now. And I would say we're still the leader in the space. ChatGPT tends to agree. If you ask it what's the best software for generating leads, typically it is going to say Interact. There are some cases where I don't recommend Interact though, and I want to go through those today as I talk you through some of the features of each quiz platform and what they're best for. I want to start with Interact because I do recommend it, number one. And our whole thing is just making quizzes that convert really well. That's why our website homepage says make quizzes that convert. We've built a system that is battle tested. We've had 1 billion people see our quizzes, 100 million leads generated through our quizzes, and it's converted really, really well. The average conversion rate is 40% on our quizzes. And I want to talk you through a couple of the key features that people really like with our quizzes. The first one, and I'll show you here from our product page, is our direct integrations. We have 24 direct integrations, everything from ActiveCampaign, Flowdesk is a big one, Go High Level is a new one, HubSpot is a direct integration, Kit, Klaviyo, MailerLite. We have the most direct integrations of any email software. What our customers tell us over and over again is they don't want to use Zapier. They just don't want to use Zapier. That's kind of the end of the story. Um, so with us, the way this works, I'll show you really quickly on my favorite quiz that I have here, which is which Colorado mountain town should you visit? Colorado mountain towns are one of my favorite places on earth. You go in to set up your opt-in form. I have mine connected up to HubSpot right now. I'll disconnect it to show you how this looks. So in here, you've got all these nice direct integrations. I'm going to choose HubSpot again because that's what we personally use at Interact. Click on that and let's take you through this. Basically, what you can do is for every quiz result, some of my quiz results over here for Colorado mountain towns, some of the ones you've probably heard of, Aspen, Vail, Breckenridge, some of the ones that maybe you haven't heard of, like Durango, Crested Butte, Salida. These are all different results. So you'll see a quiz result, and then you'll see add action. Add action means that you can have it trigger something inside of HubSpot. So I can add to a contact list if I just want to add to a list, but I can also add to a workflow, which is the most common one that people do. And this is going to load in all my workflows from HubSpot. You can see some of the behind the scenes here over at Interact. So let's say that I want to add everybody who gets Aspen to this free user onboarding, and I'm going to save that. Now I can go to the next result to Vail and send it to a different workflow. So I'm going to send this to onboard workflow. And you can do that for each result. It's extremely powerful because now you can send different follow-ups to different people depending on which result they are getting, which is huge. Like that way you can do all this personalization stuff that would normally be really expensive. And when we look at pricing, you'll see that compared to a lot of the other platforms, Interact is the cheapest one that does allow you to do this type of integration. Now I'm going to apply to all results just to move on here because you can also filter based on how people answer particular questions, which is like next level crazy. I was just talking to a resort company, and what they do with this is they trigger emails to people when cabins become available. So let's say that one of these questions here was like, what kind of vibe do you like? And you choose, I want to be up in the mountains for my cabin. Every time an availability comes up for a cabin that's in the mountains, they can email everybody that said they like the mountains. Really, really powerful. And this is like something where you can do a lot with this. So save and continue, just get this set up. Really easy to set up an integration like that. So that's a huge feature that people like. Another huge feature that people like within Interact specifically is the ease of our setup for results correlations, specifically with personality quizzes. So you can create personality quizzes with a lot of the other options that we're going to look at, but many of them were built as form softwares or survey softwares. And then they've adopted the idea of doing quizzes, which The thing that's unique about a quiz is that, let me just click out of this and show you the results. The unique about a quiz is that everything is going to go back to these unique results. So Aspen, Vail, Breckenridge, Telluride. And you can either show these results inside of Interact or redirect to your own landing pages so you can have a fully custom experience for each result. But connecting up the questions and the results can be very complicated. Not with Interact though. Like, let's say I want upscale shops to go to Vail and Aspen. That's more accurate than what I currently have. Vail, Aspen, and who else has upscale shops? No, this is right actually. So those have the most. I guess Breck also has a lot. And then All About Adventure, right? So All About Adventure is probably going to be Telluride, Durango, Steamboat, and Salida's also got good adventure. So this is really easy. These correlations are basically plus ones for these results. So I can give plus 1 to 4 different results here. What's going to happen at the end is those are going to get tallied up. Whichever one I have the most results for is the one I'm going to see as my result. And then the other thing that people like to do with our logic is our branching logic. And I'm going to zoom out my map here, which is a little trick if you are using this. You can zoom out the map so that you can see the whole thing at once, because this gets a little complicated. What is happening here, though, is every path through this quiz is unique. So let's say I choose this, it's going to show me different questions, and those different questions are going to follow through, and I can specify every result based on how people answer the questions. And these maps can get really, really complex. Like, you can do a lot with these. And I've built ones where there are 100 plus different results, each with its own unique pathway through the quiz. So you can specify exactly which result somebody gets depending on exactly how they answer every question. So it's really, really powerful in that way. So it's another huge feature that people really like about using Interact. I'll zoom my map all the way back in here so we can see all this good stuff. So those are some of the highlights of Interact. The other thing that's really nice about Interact is that it embeds very nicely into every platform. Squarespace, WordPress, Showit is a big one that our customers like, Shopify, all of those. It embeds very nicely. It looks very clean. I'm going to show you an example of that before we move on here, because I just want to show you what it looks like. This is Shopify. Common Era is one of our customers. We really like them. They have very cool lines of jewelry, and this is what an Interact quiz looks like embedded in here. Super nice. It looks exactly like the rest of the website. You can't really tell it's coming from a third party. You go through this, you answer the questions, and then you got your opt-in form. So that's the lead part of this. And then I see my results, and you are this. So that's a great example of a quiz that uses the full Interact. And then let me show you the other quiz, which uses results redirects. So I can show you that, because this is a big thing that people do specifically with Shopify, especially because if you want to have products in your results, you can use the redirect function for that. So here we go. I'm going to opt in again. This time I'm getting redirected. So I got redirected to Gaia, I believe is how you say that. And then you've got the description here, and then you got products right here in the results. Super cool for Shopify. You can also use redirect for anything else. So I've spent a lot of time talking about Interact. This is a top 8, so I'm going to get to the other ones now. But this is why people typically like using Interact. You've got those direct integrations. You've got the really easy to set up logic. You've got the really easy to integrate into your existing website. So it just plays really nicely with everything else that you do. If you jump on our website, you can see examples from a bunch of different industries. One that's really fun recently is we've started to work with more enterprises. So you see like Atlassian on here. Direct Energy is another one. They just won the Content Marketing Institute award for the best content strategy in 2025 for their quiz hub approach. They have a whole hub full of quizzes, which is very, very cool. So yeah, number one recommendation is Interact if you're doing just straightforward quizzes and you want them to convert really well. Number 2 recommendation is Typeform. And I really like Typeform. They have such cool design. Their quizzes are known for their unique like interactivity of their design. All the quizzes that you'll see here are interactive, but Typeform has their own design style. That's actually kind of the big thing that put them on the map in the first place. They were around when we started just as a form builder. They hadn't really gotten into the quiz space too much at that point. We both launched right around the same time in 2013. So we've seen them for a long time. Great product. The drawback here, there's two things. One, they don't integrate directly with every platform. So specifically Kit, Flowdesk, um, Keep is another big one. And there's like a number of them that they don't integrate directly with. And that can be a huge drawback because then you got to go through Zapier. It's a lot of work. Same thing with their logic. Their logic for personality quizzes can be complex and a bit difficult to set up. I talk to customers all the time. I was just talking to one last week, a big name you'd recognize, and they were saying that setting their personality quiz up on Typeform was a lot of work because of the way the scoring works. It's built for forms, really. It's built for surveys. It's not necessarily built for quizzes, so it can take a lot of time to set up. That being said, if you want a software that does both quizzes and forms, that's where I would typically recommend Typeform. They also do some cool stuff using variables where you can basically create a calculator. Like I can think of examples where somebody really wanted to make a calculator. It was framed as a quiz, but it was mostly a calculator. And I told them to go use Typeform. So we always do that whenever there's a use case where it's like, hey, actually, you'd be better off with Typeform. And that's why I'm doing this top 8 as the founder of Interact, because we're not always the best solution. So if you want something that's like an all-in-one where you can do your forms and your quizzes, you're fine with a little bit of extra effort, and you're using one of the ones that they do integrate with directly, I think that's where Typeform does make sense for you. The next one that I want to recommend, and I actually recommend these people a lot, is called Digio. Now, right off the bat, what you'll notice is it's much, much, much more expensive than Interact. Starts at $4.99 a month. And actually, let me just go back real quick and talk about pricing, because pricing on Interact versus pricing on Typeform is my one kind of point of contention with them. So with Interact, the way we do it, you get a 14-day free trial. You can start for free. You can start totally free. You don't have to put in a credit card. You can start for free, try out our whole platform. So what I was just showing you, you can do for free. But then you get a 14-day free trial where you can use the full platform. Our cheapest plan, if we go on monthly, so the least commitment, $39 a month, which includes collecting up to 500 email leads per month. So if you're using this for lead gen, you can collect 500 leads per month at $39 a month. Now, if we hop over to Typeform and look at pricing, I have a little bit of a gripe with, because they offer a free plan and they don't really specify the limits on it. But if you do enough digging, you can find it only includes 10 completions per month, 10 submissions per month, which means if you're converting at 30 or 40%, that's maybe 3 or 4 leads per month, responses. So 10 responses on their free plan. That's not enough to actually use the quiz. So if you're going to be paying, you're going to be paying the basic pricing. But then for $29 a month, you still only get 100 responses per month, which again, if you're converting at 30 or 40%, maybe you collect 30 or 40 leads per month on this basic plan. Whereas if we bump back over to Interact, you can collect 500 emails per month on the basic plan. And yes, it's $10 more, but you're not going to get bumped up. Whereas I believe with Typeform, they do a scaled pricing thing. So you're not going to just go straight to the $59 a month if you go over the 100, but you're certainly going to be paying more. And so with Interact, you get all the features that matter, like the lead collection, the segmentation, all that on our basic plan. And then the other thing, and this is where big creators typically tell me that Interact pricing is great, is on our top plan. Let's say you're collecting a lot of leads. For $125 a month paid annually, which is $1,500 a year, you can collect 8,000 email leads a month. That's 96,000 a year. And if we go over and compare that again to Typeform, for theirs at $83 a month for the annual, you got 10,000 responses a month. But Again, even at a conversion rate of 40%, that might only be 4,000 actual leads per month. So less than half the leads. Let me make sure that math is right. Nope, exactly half the leads per month if you go with Typeform, and 83 versus 125. So you are saving. Now, if you go over that, this is where I think it can get really sticky with something like Typeform, and I think Jotform is similar because I interviewed a big creator, Erin McGough from Advice with Erin. She was saying that Jotform was quoting her at like 10K a month once she got over the default limits. And again, here, like you go into their enterprise, they are going to try to get you on an enterprise plan if you go over 10,000 responses a month. If you're a creator, 10,000 a month doesn't make sense. For us, once you go over this, it just increments up. So it's like, I don't know, 155 a month gets you 10,000 and 175 gets you 12,000. It's not exactly that, but it's kind of like that. Like it doesn't scale up that much if you're going over this lead limit. So if you're doing high volume, or if you're at the bottom end, it's a better deal overall for most people to go with Interact, because even though this pricing looks cheaper on Typeform, this is the one kind of gripe that I have with them, and that it looks cheap, but then you actually start using it and it's not cheap, which is such a bummer if you're like a small business owner. We still consider ourselves to be a small business. And when we get stuck into places like this where we start on a software, we start to scale up, and then they're like, oh, you got to go to enterprise. It's 20K a year. You're like, what the heck? Like, we're a small business. That doesn't make any sense for us. And so at Interact, we are a small business. We understand that. We scale up from here. This goes to 155 and then 175 and then 225. Like, it doesn't go up to an enterprise offering. We are built for small business. So that's a lot of time to spend on pricing. And the reason why I started on that diatribe was because I was looking at Digio. And for Digio, their pricing is much more expensive. But I send people to them when they want completely custom stuff, because they do a lot of very cool things. They can build you a quiz that looks completely unique to your website, especially in the e-commerce space. If you have thousands of SKUs, that's where I send people over to Digio. And Rishi, the founder over there, is awesome. I've met him in person, really good person. They've also been in the space for a long time. They're also bootstrapped. So if you're doing something really custom, I recommend using Digio instead of trying to build it yourself. Building quizzes yourself, it's kind of not that hard the first time around, but then every time you have to make an update, it gets more and more expensive. And inevitably, everybody that I've seen do it, they make a custom quiz for like 2 or 3 years and then they come back around. So don't recommend. So yeah, that's Digio. Next one is Involve.me. These guys have been around since about 2019. So in 2019, there was a big wave of quizzes. It got really popular for a second. And you'll see actually the next 3 companies that I'm showing all started right around that time. Now, this is not necessarily always the case, but what we do hear about all 3 of the companies coming up is that sometimes they'll come to us and say that they didn't have the best support experience, because I think these companies kind of came on the scene when things were really hot, and it's not so really hot in this space anymore. And so they've kind of shed some weight, or they've shed some support folks. I don't know if that's exactly what's going on, but we do hear that the support is not always what you want it to be. But specifically on feature sets, Involve.me, I think, is cool if you are doing something that's more complex. They do a bunch of stuff. It's a bit more expensive, like $49 a month for the base price. I also don't love that they don't actually tell you how many completions or leads you can collect on each plan. I couldn't find it anywhere. All it says is that it's not unlimited, so they do charge you. So I'd be worried if like I signed up for this and had a really successful quiz that they'd be charging a lot of money. They do have good integrations, which is nice. Their quiz experience itself, we hear from people, is maybe a little clunky sometimes. This one also I have a gripe with, because they also tout having a free plan. Their free plan doesn't integrate with anything, and you can't export anything, which doesn't even make any sense. Like, what are you going to do? Like, copy and paste leads out of here? It doesn't make sense to me. And it's going to create a lot of work for you. I've never talked to a customer that's fine with having to do even a manual export. So that doesn't make a lot of sense. So the free plan kind of null, and then the base price kind of expensive, and then it scales up a bit more here. So if you're doing really powerful stuff, I think this could be a good solution for you. But if you're just doing lead gen quizzes, I don't know that it would be the best in terms of like price and value. The next one is ScoreApp. Also came up around a similar time in that 2019 timeframe. The thing that they do that is unique is if you want to score on like different areas of knowledge or whatever, they do that really well. So when somebody wants to be like, hey, I want to score on this area and this area and this area, and then I want to add them all up at the top, they do that really well. The downside of that is that all of that has to live within the ecosystem. You can't redirect to external results if you're doing that because it's too complicated. So oftentimes you can kind of find a solution that works within the Interact branching logic system that does something similar, but they do have a cool setup for that. I will give them that every day of the week. It is kind of cool. Their pricing, pretty similar, $39 a month, $99. $149. Again, it's limited to 100 responses a month. So actually, I take that back. It's not similar because for Interact at $39 a month, but you're getting 500 leads a month, that's vastly different than 100 responses a month. Because again, even if you're converting at 40%, that's only 40 leads in a month. Whereas for us, it's 500. That's 12x the leads at the same price. So if you are using it for lead gen rather than the more complex thing, that's the thing, right? If you're using it for the more complex thing where you want to have this whole report and stuff, then that would make more sense to use ScoreApp. But if you're using it for lead gen where you want to tie it into your email software and have it all segment and automate, Interact's the way to go. So that is ScoreApp. Next one's Octane. Also came on the scene around a similar time. It says online they started 2016. We started to hear about them in 2018, 2019. So I think a similar time frame. Theirs is like very specific to Shopify. I think they compete with Digio. I usually recommend Digio because their pricing does get expensive really fast. Like, let's say you have 4,500 quiz takers a month. It's $500 a month, which is a lot. And so typically I do recommend Digio, but they do have some cool question types, which is the reason why Octane is cool. Next one's Outgrow. The main reason folks go to Outgrow, or I would recommend it, is they can do really complex like scoring systems. And so if you got something where it's like you got this whole idea baked up and it's like this massive thing, this is probably the place to go look to see if they can do it. Interact scoring, while it's super easy to set up, and we do have the branching logic, which is very powerful, if you want to do something that's like, I got this, and it correlates to this, and then that relates to this, and then it goes into part two, and then it all adds together. If you're thinking of something like that, Outgrow is probably your way to go. So that's the way this works. Pricing for them has always been a little confusing to me. They list these really cheap plans, but then whenever I talk to anybody, they're like, oh yeah, in order to actually do what I wanted to do, it was like 95 or the 600 a month, because I think they have like some features that you can't do on the cheaper plans. And so they do list this cheaper pricing, but everyone that I've talked to talks about how it ends up being expensive by the time you set it up the way you want it to be done. Last one I'll show you is Jotform. Jotform is a cool company. They're also bootstrapped. They've been around for a really long time. You can use it to build a lot of different types of forms and quizzes. I'd say it's fairly similar in terms of like the use case to Typeform, but with some differentiators in terms of like they have HIPAA compliance, which is very cool and very helpful. I don't know if the other ones do, but I know they do. And so whenever somebody's asking for something like that, we'll send them over to Jotform. Great company. Drawback here is going to be the same thing. Like at a certain point after this 10,000 submissions, They're pushing you into custom pricing. The pricing is all about the same on these, honestly. Like there's 1,000 submissions, which is about the same as 500 leads for us. So going to be a similar thing. The integrations are not as smooth. The logic's not as smooth because, again, this is going to be a form builder that you're using for quizzes versus a dedicated quiz builder. Interact is the only dedicated quiz builder that, has really stood the test of time. I guess now you got Score App is also a dedicated quiz builder, but for that different use case where you're doing the multi-threaded kind of scoring system. Interact is the most flexible in terms of making it look like your website, integrating it into your website, into your flow, embedding it, connecting up to your integrations, all that good stuff. So hopefully this was helpful. I'd say at a high level summary, Interact's best overall if you're doing like quizzes for lead gen specifically, and you wanted to integrate with your email software, you wanted to integrate with your website, that's where Interact really shines. If you're doing something that's more complicated and complex, then you're probably going to be looking at ones like the Score App and the Outgrow. If you wanted to also be a form builder, then you're going to be looking at Typeform and Jotform. Just keep in mind, it's going to be a little bit harder to actually build those quizzes, and the lead limits are lower because it's going to be based on submissions versus leads. And then for custom stuff, I always recommend Digio. And then InvolveMe and Octane AI are also kind of on that cusp of being custom advanced stuff. But again, like I typically go with Digio for that kind of stuff because they've always shown a good experience to their customers. So yeah, if you want to try these out, most of them offer the ability to at least sign up for free. At least with Interact, you can start for free, sign up, try out the whole platform. You don't have to commit to anything. See if it works. You can even launch for 14 days and actually start collecting leads without having to pay. So you can see if it actually works for you before committing to anything. So hopefully this was a helpful review of the top 8 lead gen quiz builders for 2025. And I'm excited to see what will happen in future years. It's been such an interesting market over the last 12 years since we entered the space, and we've been just doing quizzes the whole time. To see these different folks come into the market, different little avenues that everybody's taken. But yeah, that's the review.